See, guys, this is the best part of the video, when I just start it and I kind of teeter on how exactly I'm going to start it. I want to thank all my patrons because you are the ones being able to see this. I'm starting something new. This is the first time we're posting content on our Patreon page, where my goal is to give you premium content. And when I say premium content, that means content you can't find anywhere else, or content that you can get first rather than waiting till the days that our podcast publishes, or my podcast publishes, every other Thursday. Now, this is brand new. Patrons, you may have heard about this or seen this on Facebook or heard about it on my last podcast, episode 87, I think it was. But what I want to get into doing is recording a show. It's Sunday night. You guys are going to get a little bit something different, because you are going out of your way to help me do this. So I want to go out of my way and really kind of, as much as I peel the curtain back on my show, I want to be able to do it and give you guys something you might not usually see, which is hard because I share so much on my show. So it's Sunday night. My wife is out of town. My kids are upstairs chilling. They know Daddy wants to record a show. I've been feeling inspired. I don't usually post a show every week. I kind of held back, kind of cut out those mini-sodes. For those of you, I'm sure your patrons, you're aware of my show and listen to my show, and that's why I thank you for being here. But I'm going to record episode 88 on this show, which will be a video. I'll record it on video. I will post this on the Patreon page prior to the upcoming Thursday so you guys can see it first, which is the content I want to give you so you can see it. We'll also figure out, I know I'm going to put the video up, but I need to figure out on Patreon how I actually get my podcast file up there as well. So we're going to get started. Again, honestly, I want to thank you guys for your support. I've been doing this for a while now, since January of 15. This is a great experience for me. It's an up and down journey, but I want to make sure that I'm connecting with you as fast as possible, because you go so out of your way to connect with me and make an impact with your pledges on the page. And remember that on the side of the screen, if I'm doing this right, it should be over here on your device or whatever it is. Well, probably not. I'm so used to looking at it on the website. You can see our rewards. So if you up your donation, remember, we'll take anything as small as $1 a month. But if you do a $5 and up, you can get rewards. You can be a co-host on the show. I know I do have co-hosts that do join me and support me on Patreon, which is great. That's why this thing keeps moving. But if you're new to the show and new to Patreon and you jumped on to support me, I can have you on the show. That's what this whole thing is about. It's all about connecting with people while I'm doing this, and then sharing stories and experiences based on the topics we pick. So I don't want to jump ahead, but I'm going to go through my little ritual here. Kind of get ready for the show. It's what I do. I've done this on Facebook Live a couple of times, but I'm not going to be doing that anymore. I'm going to hold back. I want to thank those patrons who have supported me during this little side project I was doing, these tips and tricks. I'm holding off on that. I may have bit off more than I can chew. I need to pace myself. And I did a show. I need to pay attention to the road that I'm running on. Look at my feet rather than looking so far ahead, because I'm definitely losing sight of the small things. But I'm going to get a drink of water. And, talk amongst yourselves. The one thing I was really thinking of doing, and I'll throw this out to the patrons. Thanks, guys. I can't be more appreciative. Well, I can be. I could thank you guys till I'm blue in the face. But I wanted to do something to create some content for the Patreon page. Maybe top 10 questions. I know I share a lot on the show, and I share a lot with my audience on my podcast. That's what this 200 episode journey is all about. But what I'd like to do is, if you guys message me through the Patreon page, you can tag this post. What are some questions, rather than doing 20 questions, because that's a lot, let's do 10 questions. So what kind of questions do you have about me? Anything. It doesn't matter what it is, what I might think on something. I wanted to spice it up a bit and give you guys an opportunity to ask me things, to kind of throw some questions back. I try to answer as many questions as I can out of life and what comes up on the shows with my co-hosts. But I wanted to do something a little different and maybe put a little show together for my Patreon subscribers, which is really great. So I'm going to get going. This one's going to be a quick one. Actually, no. You know what? I might talk your ear off. Who knows? But remember, you guys get this first. This is this little behind-the-scenes stuff I want to get used to doing, because when we post this video after the podcast posts on the YouTube channel, none of this is going to be on there. This is specifically for you guys. I know this is somewhat of a one-sided conversation, but I want to make it a two-sided conversation. So remember to go in those comments on this post on your Patreon subscription and put in top 10 questions you want me to answer or points of view you might think I have. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's always fun. I didn't realize how interested people are. Again, that's my issue, my imposter syndrome. But I'm only going to share with you guys that so many people follow my show. It's really cool. And I want to give something back as much as possible. And that's what this Patreon page is about. And as I get more comfortable doing this and figuring out what kind of premium content, other than just getting you content earlier than everyone else who downloads the podcast, I will come up with interesting ways to do it, creative ways to do it, give you some more stuff. But I want this Patreon page to be the stuff that only the Patreon subscribers get. It's not on Facebook. It's not on YouTube. It's not on our podcast page. And it's not on our website. I want to make sure you guys get it. So I'm going to get started. So bear with me. And if you've co-hosted the show, you know this ritual. So much fun. Love this stuff. Haven't got notes. Oh, you like this new shirt? Check this out. I'm trying something different. Stitch Fix. They're not my sponsors, but I'm working on it. My designer, Sherry, she's awesome. She wanted to try something new, so she packed in my last fix, which is the 5 apparel items that I get every month in the mail. This kind of cream-colored minor league Chicago baseball team from like the 1930s or something. Fits nice, feels well, and feels good, and I'm enjoying it, so I wanted to maybe show it off. And I like doing that. I think that's kind of cool. Again, I only wear these clothes on the show. So there we go. So episode 88. Episode 88. Yep, I'm pretty much ready. All right, cool. See, that's it. You guys are getting this. Oh, and tell me what you think about this. If you like this stuff and you'd like me to continue to do it, let me know. If you just want the show and all this cut out, let me know. I don't want to bore you. Again, you're going out of your way to help me. I want to go out of my way to make sure I'm giving you what you want. Awesome. Here we go. Hey there, everyone. Thank you for downloading and listening to episode 88 of the Dependent Independent Podcast. I'm your host, Nick G., and this is a 200-episode podcast about making connections, looking back while moving forward. In these episodes, I pick a topic and share stories and experiences so we can both possibly learn something to continue to move forward. Now, usually these shows post every other Thursday, but I'm feeling the itch, and I think I'm going to post this just simply a week after our last episode, 87, which posted last week. So thanks, everybody. I was joined by Ken Rodder. That was an amazing experience in the sense that, again, I'm not over-embellishing. What I mean is it was great. It was a story about Ken's divorce and about he jumped into politics, and I wanted to be able to experience what he experienced through his great storytelling. And I like the fact that the first time I connected with him on that show, or on that topic, when he did get divorced, he wanted to just do a show about divorce, and I knew it wasn't the right time, so I'm glad I waited, that we can kind of go through this great journey that he's gone through from being simply at a really downtrodden, low time in his life, and then building himself back up and now doing his best to be a servant leader in his community. So I think it's awesome. So episode 88, and like I said before, I was getting an itch. And speaking of itch, I always try new creative things with this podcast. And what I'm doing differently is this show will premiere on our Patreon page. Now, those of you that are downloading the show and listening to it on any iOS or Android app, you've either heard about the show from a friend, you found it accidentally online, or you did a Google search and I popped right up when you typed the Dependent Independent Podcast. These podcasts they're recorded. Everything I usually do is pre-recorded. I try not to do anything the night of because that's a lot of work. I have a life out of this, and that's what this 200-episode journey is all about, trying to find the time to be able to share these stories and experiences with those of you listening, which is great. But every time I record a show, whether it be on video, which I'm doing right now, or simply audio, I want to make sure that I post these shows on our Patreon page for all of our Patreon subscribers that are going out of their way to help me. So this episode will hopefully have already been listened to and watched by our Patreon subscribers. If you want to see these shows or listen to these shows that we record prior to the postings every other Thursday, or if I get antsy and get the itch every week, every Thursday at 9 a.m., go ahead to our Patreon page. The link is in our show notes. It's www.patreon.com/thedependentindependent, where you can donate as small as $1 to help me continue to do this and I can put more back into the show. But because you're helping me, I want to give you something a little different. So we'll continue to build our premium content. And right now we're just doing earlier content so you can hear and watch the show before everyone else gets it on the interwebs, whether it be an iOS or Android app. And I just started listening to podcasts on Google Podcast Player. We used to do on Google Play, which was their like music service, but you can actually download the app. If you have an Android phone, which I have, a Google Pixel, you can download the Google Podcast Player, and it's awesome. It's clean. It's great. I'm catching up with all my old, some of the podcasts I haven't listened to in a while from also some of my podcasting friends. All right, let's get into the topic. And the topic I wanted to talk about is getting tired of the bullshit and saying something about it. Not just doing something about it, saying something about it. And here's what I mean. I've had this interesting week because I've been dealing with a lot of cynics, people that really are vocal about how shitty things are. Now, it's really easy to tell, or sometimes it's really hard to tell the truth, but sometimes when you tell bullshit or spin web lies of bullshit, it's easy to embellish and bend the truth, like really, really bend the truth. And I consider myself kind of and you've heard me on the show talk about this, a very kind of naive person. I'm an accommodating individual. I think my conflict default is accommodating, that I don't like making waves. I'm not controversial. We don't do that on this show. We talk about real topics, but we don't try to poke you to get a reaction of you. That's not what this is all about. But I'm just kind of an even keel, kind of easygoing guy. I do have strong opinions, but I keep them to myself, especially if they're going to offend somebody. I do have points of view, but I try to give as much positive karma out because I believe the more positive karma you give out, the more positive karma you get back. And I've seen that recently of people that put out a lot of negative karma. They usually get a lot of negative karma back. And this past week, I've been tested dealing with people both home and at work that veered towards the pessimistic kind of Rome is burning kind of attitude, or things are shitty and they'll never change type of attitude. And what I've learned is, in order to sell people on that, people have to sling a lot of bullshit. They have to tell you what they think you need to hear, not so much want to hear, but need to hear to see the world the way they see it. And I'm trying to keep my distance from those people. I know it's a necessary evil because you can't completely push everybody away, because that's not what it's all about. There has to be a little yin and yang in this whole thing, and it's kind of good for me to actually be around people that kind of look at, or even kind of dump a little bit of truth on me. So, because sometimes my point of view might be bullshit. My naivety might be bullshit to them. But I was hanging out at my sister-in-law's. Kids were swimming in the pool, and there were some people there, and I was mingling, and my sister-in-law, one of the individuals there, decided to share something, or wanted to talk, someone I met there wanted to share something with the group, and she needed some advice, and my sister-in-law, without hesitation, said, Nick likes talking with people. Why don't you talk to him? He'll listen. And I listened. And we talked, and she let me know what her issue was, what her challenge was, and I offered some input, and we laughed, and it was fun. I actually really enjoyed it. I was really connecting with this individual. And as I got more comfortable, and here's the thing, by the way, when I say comfortable, I am comfortable talking to people, but you know what I realized? My wife kind of went away for the weekend with her girlfriends. Which she deserves, and she is having some fun, and I'm home with the kids. We got baseball, we got activities. We did have some fun swimming in a neighbor's pool today, which was a lot of fun. Went to the mall, comic shop. I bought an old school Nintendo. I bought the Nintendo Entertainment System. I needed one of those, even though I just got my NES Classic Mini. I'm sure those folks following the Facebook page, the Dependent Independent podcast page, actually saw my photo I put in. It's that real small Mini that just came out that you really have to kind of go to any GameStop that only has, or Walmart that only has 4 or 5 of them. I bought mine in Europe. It's got 30 pre-games loaded, classic games, but I don't have the actual 1985 off the assembly line Nintendo Entertainment System. So I bought one of those at this place called Level Up in our mall that sells like comic books and vintage toys and old Nintendo carts, and the kids had fun. And it was great. So I enjoyed my weekend, and my wife's enjoying hers, but I realized I'm not the same when she's not around. I'm not myself. I'm not talkative. I'm not, she's like I said before, my yin and yang. She's my yang. I'm the yin, she's the yang. I need her around, especially in social settings. It's weird because she's my safety net. When even though I'm extroverted and I talk to you, I'm talking to you guys on video, I'm talking to you guys on the podcast, I share a lot of things, but I like being alone. I like being to myself. But she is amazing because she's always there with me. And when I'm alone, I always know that she's there. But this weekend, she's not there. So I was a little out of my element at this outdoor fun time at my sister-in-law's where the kids were swimming. And as they started loosening up, I started mingling, and I started meeting people that I didn't know, and there was someone there who was sharing some stories with me that I was so compelled to call bullshit, But why can't I call bullshit? Is it because I can't pick the right words? I'm not saying the right thing? I'm not sure. I don't know where I get stuck. Is it because and my friend, he and I were going back and forth last night. He listened to the last show about being nice and how I have a habit of saying yes every time someone asks me for help. And I think that's my way of shaping someone's perception about me, that I want to be perceived as the person who's always helpful. But man, it's a great way for people to walk all over you and take advantage of you. And I'm going through this definitely another life paradigm shift to stop doing that, to stop being the person that's constantly saying, yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, I'll help you. Especially if I want to make some money helping people doing something like this. I had to stop doing that because I should definitely charge people for this because it requires a lot of work, a lot of knowledge, man. So I don't know if I don't say anything because I don't want people to go, you know what, he was an all right guy, but yeah, he's kind of an asshole. Isn't that weird? It's like it's a rabbit hole that I'll keep going into if I don't break the cycle. And I'm feeling tested. I'm feeling like someone who wants to break the cycle. I want to at least blow up. You know, I was even in a situation, in a conversation at work where I felt like blowing up. But the irony is, in the situation that I was in, I had to be the straight man. I had to be the guy that got everybody to calm down and chill. And I wanted to lose it. I wanted to just go, and I couldn't, or I wasn't allowed to, because it wasn't the right time or the right situation. And this past week, between that and being at this party at my sister-in-law's and hearing someone spin yarns of weirdness, and I just wanted to be like, that's bullshit. Screw you, dude. That what you're saying doesn't make any sense to me. I think you're just spinning it. But I couldn't. I just sit there and nod my head and go, yeah, that's really, yeah, that's got to be true. Yeah, that's great. So I struggle calling bullshit, and I have to figure out how to. And should I? I mean, that's the proverbial, right? Should I? Do I need to? Does it matter? Does it matter that I don't call bullshit? Should I? I don't know. I don't know what to do. Should I just jump it right in and not care and just do it and see what happens? No, it's risky. It's risky. I think anytime you say something negative to somebody or you're brutally honest with somebody, you can't take it back. You really can't take it back. And when you think about what really gets me fired up is when someone does something that you feel like you're going to be the hero by calling bullshit on them. And let's just say it's not always calling bullshit, but telling them something that no one else has the courage to tell them. There's a guy in my neighborhood, lives in a fancy house around the corner. If anyone in my neighborhood is listening, you know who I'm talking about. And the guy drives his car like it's the Indy freaking 500. Never stops at stop signs, and the guy stares at his cell phone as he's zipping around the corners. And we have kids. This is a 25-mile-an-hour neighborhood. The guy's insane, and he has zero consideration. I believe some people have talked to him or addressed him. I don't even know. Actually, I don't even know if anyone in the town has actually had the balls to walk up to him and say, hey, asshole, slow the fuck down because you're going to kill somebody or yourself. But I was walking my dog the other day. Occasionally I walk Lucky. I've done some Facebook Lives. You guys know Lucky if you've been on our podcast page on Facebook. And I see him zipping around. And the other day I was so freaking compelled, almost waiting or hoping that he